Welcome back to this week's episode of Whoscussion, guys. Again, I apologise for part A. I don't know what happens. I do. It's called maple syrup. We're going to be...
Next week will be better.
Yeah, it will be better. What are we getting next week? It's the Family of Blood two-parter.
Family of Blood and Blink.
Yeah. Hang on. Hang on a second.
No, we're not doing it.
No. Could we not just do Family of Blood?
No.
Okay, fine.
Two-parter.
Okay, fine. We're gonna do Family of Blood and Blink. Those.
So,
yeah. Next week's gonna be great. This week though, for part B, we're gonna be doing Tangled Web. And for finishing it off with Whispers of Terror. Tangled Web is an 8th Doctor story following on his adventures with Molly O'Sullivan and the villainous Toby Jones, who's playing the infamous X, also known as Controd X. I don't know what it is. What was it again? Toby Jones. Cottress. That's not a name we'll be forgetting anytime soon, sir. No. I dare say you won't. And Whispers of Terror is the 6th Doctor and Perry reunited on Big Finish for the first time. And after listening to that, hopefully not the last. So, Tangled Web. Tangled Web picks up directly after last week's story. And the Doctor and Molly O'Sullivan. The Doctor's like, hey, why can you control the TARDIS? And she's like, I can't. And he's like, yes, you can. You need to tell me why. And so he's like, So he uses what I can presume to be contact to get her to remember why she's familiar with the TARDIS.
Like in combination with hypnotism.
Yeah. So, and she's like, you're not putting me under, or is it under the influence, are you? And he's like, yeah, that's 100% what I'm doing. Sorry, Molly. And she remembers seeing a TARDIS when she was 2. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to go back to that. Takes them there. And the Daleks are like, what's the Doctor doing? And Cottress is like...
Someone else's time stream. It was amazing.
And he's doing that thing. And the time controller's like, you'd fully said he couldn't do that. And he's like, well, he shouldn't be able to.
Well, the thing is, like, the time controller's like, that's impossible. And he's like, yeah, it is impossible. But I knew that the Doctor could do impossible things.
Yeah. And so the Doctor is watching, and the time controller's like, you said you weren't observed. And he's like, I wasn't. And he's sitting there like, stop changing my timeline, Doctor, god dang it. So they watch it, and Molly's like, I remember now. It was raining and stuff. And it looks like you only just remembered. And she's like, yeah, you totally awakened my memories of this. So the story actually started with Molly's parents crying over the disappearance of Molly. And the actors that they got to play her parents, just like, those are Molly's parents. Like, it was great. It was so fantastic. And the ex-Cottress turns up, and Toby Jones is just like my wife and I were actually watching Graham Norton last night. And Toby Jones was on it with Ryan Reynolds and Will Smith and Catherine Zeta-Jones. And she was just awesome. Like, that guy is so good at acting. And I was like, yeah, he is. He's going to be in the story that I'm listening to. And so she actually listened to it with me. It was really cool. And she was just like, he's so good. And she was blown away when he did his Irish, when he was the Irish accent character.
Yeah.
She's right here, woman. Like, talk, even like using I suppose you could say the colloquialisms of the time to communicate with them is fantastic. Like, Big Finish. I wish he had the show. But he drops off Molly. And then Molly's like, I remember Mum saying that, like, I didn't wake up for 2 days. And the Doctor's like, okay, what the heck's going on? I want to investigate this further. And as he goes to do that, the TARDIS is time clamped. And he's like, what the heck, we're time clamped? And it turns out that X is like, oh, don't worry, time controller, don't exterminate me, please. I'm gonna sort something out. And I was reminded of how much I hate the time controller, because the last time he ruined everything, it was also with the Time Lord. And the time controller says you're not even a Time Lord anymore. And it's interesting because the Doctor said that to him, he didn't see he didn't see ex-Cottress as a Time Lord. So I wonder what he's done to himself to make himself like separate from his own people. But the time clamp happens, and then the Doctor hears this ringing, and he goes, can you hear that? Molly's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he's under. And he wakes up, and Molly's like, Doctor, I got you out of the tardy box there. And he's like, what? How? We were time clamped. And she's like, well, I did. And he's like, where are we? And then this octopus walks up to him. This octopus creature's like, I love the sound effects as well for him walking, because it's what I've imagined Dalek Khan sounded like when he was grabbing Davros and taking him back out of the Time War. And so, yeah, it's it's like, hello there, and the doctor's like, what are you, random squid thing? And he's like, my name is Thelonious. And so Thyllis, I am Thyllis. And the doctor's like, what the hell is a Thyllis? And he's like, come on, doctor, come with me. And they're like walking around, and the doctor's like, oh, whoa, what the hell? And he sees all these children playing. And then Molly's like, no, doctor, these are the Daleks. And he's like, what? Yeah. And then he starts having a panic attack, and the noise comes back, I love that everybody's he's complaining about it. He's like, what the hell is that noise? And I love it because, like, you as an audience member are like, what the hell is that noise? Because it is quite piercing, and Big Finish have done it on purpose. And then he's under again. Yeah, they know their medium. And then he wakes up, and Molly's like, hey, they thought you might be out for... No, he wakes up, and he's like, what do you want, Dalek? And he's screaming at this Dalek. And Molly walks in and goes, what are you doing? He's like, that Dalek, be careful. And he's like, is it moving? And he's like, no. And Molly's like, I'll tell you why. And she knocks on it, and the Carla mutant inside is like, oh, good morning, Miss O'Sullivan. And she's like, no, this can't be real.
No.
It's like, no, this isn't real. And she's like, no, come on, Doctor. There are bad Daleks and there are good Daleks. He's like, but there's only bad Daleks. It's what they believe. And she goes, how do you know what someone else believes? And he goes, well, it's what they say. It's really good because, like, Molly constantly pulls him up on his bullshit. I really like that about Molly O'Sullivan. She constantly, like, gets the Doctor to reevaluate his stances and stuff. It's really interesting. It's a dynamic that I don't believe we've ever come across with a companion before. And I just put that down to just the time period and the culture she's from. And the Doctor's just like, I can't get behind this, Molly. I'm so sorry. And then he's about to give in to the idea that this is a new Skaro. And then Phyllis goes, the Time Lords are gone. What? It's like, yeah, they were wiped out in a war with our people. And he's like, what? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. A war between the Time Lords and the Daleks when the Time Lords are lost. And I was just like, oh, Big Finish. You guys are so good. And that was like, for him, that's when he's like, no, back to life, back to reality. So he goes over to the TARDIS and he's like, this isn't the TARDIS. None of this is real. What is this? And then the noise comes back and it gets louder and louder the more the Doctor's pushing off the fantasy. And then he wakes up and he's like, what's this pain in my head? And I just, because you don't actually, like, obviously there's no narration. So I just imagined him, like, feeling his hair and just like, what the hell's that? Pulling out these things out of his head and being all like, okay, why are there electrodes in my head? And then there's these two alien psychiatrists that are like, he believes the fantasy so strongly that he was able to break through our conditioning. And they're like talking to themselves, and the Doctor's trying to grab their attention. He's like, you guys not listening to me is really starting to piss me off. And he's just like, and if you've listened to the end of To the Death, you'll know what happens then. So he's like, he sonics the door so they can't get in. And he's like, wakes up Molly, and Molly's like, what the hell's going on? And he goes, what's your name? And she's like, what a dumb question. You know my name? He's like, just tell me it. I'm Molly. And then he's like, how long? He's like, tell me all the adventures we've been on. Because he's trying to pinpoint how long he's been underneath their influence. And thankfully for him, it's only been for this episode. And he's like, oh, thank goodness. And then he's like, oh, how do we get out of here? And then he gets picked up by a TARDIS. And he's like, oh my God. Straxus? And Straxus is like, hey, Doctor, what's going on? He's like, why aren't you guys trying to help me? And he's like, well, we've been trying to keep you away from Gallifrey. Why? We kind of just don't want to be involved. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, but we want you to find out what the Daleks are doing. And this is, I could just see like the look on his face, like, you don't want to be involved, but you want me to find out what's going on. One of these things is not like the other. And so the Straxus is like, we're going to give you your TARDIS. And he's like, oh, well, why don't you guys come with me? And Strax is like, no, we need to stay here and die. And the Doctor's like, that's really dumb. Just come with me. He's like, no, if we die and the Daleks pick up that we're dead, then they'll think that you died too. And the Doctor's like, no, that's silly. Come with me. And then it's the end. And that's where it leaves off. So,
they get time rammed.
Oh yeah, they get time rammed. And Harry Scully, your thoughts on Tangled Web?
Yeah, it's a good time. It really is. There's a lot of really good stuff that happens in it. Honestly, there's so many little things that they've added that make it really cool. Particularly just the fact that the many-eyed creatures that are performing this stuff on him. Apparently, they're like psychiatrists that are particularly for people who are suffering delusions of grandeur, particularly around thinking that they're crusaders for good and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, you're selling the Doctor to a T here, but it's that much funnier because it is true for him.
Yeah,
and their involvement for this is fantastic. Where they think they've created this illusion for him that the Daleks have become good, and they've started reverting back to Khaleds because of stuff. They're trying to make him believe that they could be good, so that he can stop being this crusader, basically. Which, if the Daleks were capable of that, then it makes sense. It would work for him, but they're not, and he knows that, and that's why it really breaks down for him. But the ending to it for them is once the Doctor escapes and Strax with the TARDIS, the Daleks show up, and they're like, "Oh, you're the things from his mind. He was right." Oh.
And they're like, and but you can't be real.
Yeah, because they just don't believe that there is such a thing as how pure evil that they are, and it's such a twist on the idea that no life form, that in reality no life form would be completely pure evil because it's just a construct, but the Daleks are, and it works in the Whoniverse because of the science fiction-ness of it all, and the fact that the actual reason for them coming about, it makes sense. Literally a crazy scientist made them evil, not really evil, but just so Puritan that they became evil in that way.
And he made them because he saw it as literally the only option to save his own race.
Exactly. So, yeah. But then someone goes ahead and ruins it. But hey, we'll get to that later.
See, I wonder who that could be.
But yeah, the point is, I really enjoyed the story. I think it's the best out of the three that we've heard so far. Three?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Dark Eyes. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. It's the realization the Daleks are real. The Doctor's inability to accept that they could change is really interesting, because when you reflect with what Ten was doing with Dalek Sec, where he was so close to achieving a change, I think Dark Eyes really props up Daleks in Manhattan quite a bit.
Well, not really.
Yeah,
this episode's still bad.
This episode is still bad, but it props up his sort of ideals there, where he's given a chance to make this machination a reality. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing, is that that's Eight's effect. It's Eight's war in effect.
Yeah,
is obviously the Time War. But the war at this point is that he's been fighting the Daleks for 8 incarnations. He's thwarted them at every chance, but has always tried to talk them out of being this way. But he at this point he's basically given up, and it's after losing his great grandson and his companion of the time. So it works for him that he's truly lost hope for them to be like this, and that's become so much of his character that when they try to to sell that to him that they are good, that doesn't work. And I think that sets up so perfectly for the Time War, because
and that's what they were doing. I mean, there's lines of dialogue in this that are directly 8's going to fight the war.
It is absolutely. It is meant to be for the war. But the thing is that like it sets up so perfectly for it, because him having lost all hope for redeeming the Daleks is what would allow him to make the call that sacrifices all the Time Lords to get rid of all the Daleks.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that he would accept doing it, as if there was no other way. And this shows that he is reaching that point where he knows that there's no other way. Especially considering the Time Lords are also like giving him the runaround right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like the thing is, Big Finish are putting ammunition in 8's gun for him to turn on the Time Lords as well. Like, they're setting up so heavily that, like, this is where they think 8's going to go, where he should go, because Russell said that 8 fought the war. And then it just doesn't happen because it got retconned. And I was just like, I was so perplexed, because this box set and the second season of Dark Eyes predate the 50th anniversary. Sorry, the 8th anniversary. And so you can see Big Finish are getting it ready. They are getting ready for 8 to pull the trigger. And it sort of takes the wind out of Big Finish's run a bit, because we know, in hindsight, we know that that's not what happens. And it's just so frustrating.
Well,
we
as far as Whoscussion's concerned, it did happen.
It did happen. John Hurt was just 8 old, which is what should have been in the first place. It should have just been 8 old.
So, wasn't it even like, it should have been. That gives Big Finish so much leeway if John Hurt is McGann old, because then they can have McGann play the Doctor for ages. They could just have years, like an entire spin-off of 8 getting that old. He'd have so much time on his hands to do that. So the Time War could literally go on for hundreds of years, thousands even, if John Hurt is older 8. And the fact that he's not trying to limit that just seems like such a bad decision. On all counts, And this episodes like this, and just all of Dark Eyes so far has really shown that 8 was perfectly capable of being the War Doctor. There was no need to add in a third one, add in a second one, add in another one. I don't know, numbers,
just numbers, man. How do they work? But it's just interesting that these seeds have been sown for them to unfortunately not have a payoff in non-Whoscussion canon, and it's just sad for non-Whoscussion canon people.
Yeah, pretty much. Those got the worst canon.
Yeah, they got the worst canon. So guys, I thoroughly suggest this. You guys can pick up the 8th Doctor's run for 50% off this weekend. They are a Big Finish are running a 50% off the 8th Doctor this weekend. Again, we don't time this stuff, guys. We don't. But it's happening. And definitely go ahead and pick it up. We're going to go into our last story now. Whispers of Terror. Harriet Skelly, take us away.
Okay, so we've got Colin Baker back as 6th Doctor and Nicola Bryant as Perry Brown. That's all you need to know. The story's great. Anyway, no, I will actually give you a synopsis. Anyway, so they land in future Earth, I'm guessing. It's not really...
Well, it's not explained. But I'd say it's future Earth, because some of the names, even though they sound sciencey, some of them sound like just normal names.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a human element in the future of some kind, or at least a human world that was like maybe populated after the fact. Basically, they've landed in the Museum of Oral Antiquities, which is effectively just an audio depository for like audio discs that for some reason also globes, because it's better than CDs, man.
How do they work?
Yeah, basically Big Finish were like, hey, we do audio stories. So this is basically them just like utilizing that medium so very well. So we'll get into that. So there's a deaf man who is the
a blind man.
That's a blind man. Sorry, not deaf man. Wow, got that wrong way. he has one man who's the curator basically of this museum.
Not Tom Baker,
and
guys.
he's
Before
listening.
you could ask.
Yeah, exactly. Not Tom Baker. He's listening to the speech of Vistine Crane, who's a fantastic actor apparently, but it was also going to be running for president of this nation that we've landed in, but died apparently by suicide before he was able to make that arrangement because he was apparently well loved. Very much the not what's his name, the president who was also a
Reagan?
Who was also a Reagan, that's the one. Very much a not Reagan person because people actually liked him. But anyway, the point is that he died seemingly by suicide, and all of his speeches are held in this museum
Of oral antiquities.
of oral antiquities that is for making him sound is basically to for people to come in and listen to his speeches, all that sort of stuff. But also it's where he spent a lot of his time prior up to this point because of his acting abilities, particularly around his voice acting apparently. Big Finish, nug.
Yeah, exactly.
He's capable of a lot of audio or talking related acting, which is his main big deal. So he's been spending a lot of time in this audio area, this museum, with the studio, and has been working on a bunch of work, audio work, particularly around practicing his speeches, all that sort of stuff. So he had recorded a practice speech of him announcing his candidacy for the presidency, and his running mate at the time has come to collect it, basically to broadcast it as it includes it includes good words about her at the same time. So she wants to use that as a way of getting her own candidacy, basically, which is is a perfectly reasonable endorsement. That's right.
I was sitting there like, what is that word?
A glowing endorsement for her, which in reality is a fair use of political power. If your running mate has endorsed you, then you would obviously would want people to know that, so anyone who followed them would also follow you. That makes a lot of sense. The thing is that she is a crazy power hungry bitch.
Yes, she is.
So we'll get there in a second, but basically, Nogden and Perry, they're walking around. They find a dead body who's been electrocuted by a door. It's pretty crazy. And then a police officer shows up. It's like, hey, I think you guys killed this guy. And they're like, we really couldn't have done that. And he's just like, yeah, right, but just hang around anyway. I want to talk to you guys. That's basically what happens. It's very like there's a lot of tropes in here that a Big Finish bopping tropes on the nose, but basically saying we know this is a trope, but we're gonna lol at it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty great. Like the stuff that Six says, where he's blatantly calling the kettle black about a couple of things, like being
Colin is on
loud.
Fire in the story.
He's fantastically on fire, and even Perry is. And
yes.
She's just quipping at him all the time, and just constantly giving him a burn, just a real slight burn, when the creature for the monster, the bad thing that is happening in this not really the bad thing, it's just the monster probably works for this, is an auditory a sensory, a sentient audio waveform that's capable of changing its rhythm. So basically, it's an entity living within sound. So the tapping of a foot or the hum of air conditioning. They have a fantastic description of it in this, and it kind of works considering when you really think about it. Energy is just a wave, and if you're able to transform that energy into sound wave, then it would be able to do that if it's able to get amplified in certain ways. But I'm not really sure about the actual transference of this, exactly how that would work. Effectively, I'm just imagining that he's actually just turned himself into some sort of spirit, something that's not on our plane, but is capable of
like a
creating
$2
water
shop
stuff.
Matrix.
Yeah, effectively. But he's basically living under like in another presence of our own universe due to this, which I guess kind of works. But yeah, they obviously just wanted to use their medium more effectively by having it like this, and it really does work.
Yeah.
When you really
Did
think
you
about it,
did you use headphones for this by any chance?
Yes, absolutely.
Dude, how they use the left and right channel in this story?
Oh,
Just
yeah,
like
that's so
that's a
good, so
master
good.
stroke.
Yeah, they know what they were doing with this one. But anyway, the point is that that he's there's some really interesting stuff that happens with this. But the point is that so they're talking with this police officer. That's what I was going with this. So when the audio monster is imitating the doctor to try and get out of the lockdown that the doctor's placed on the place, because he gets, once they find out about the audio monster, he gets the police officer to lock down the entire museum, make it soundproof so that the sound can't get out, and then the sound obviously recognizes this, imitates the doctor's voice to try and get the police officer to lift it up, and then he starts like saying stuff about like, oh yeah, I was wrong, and Perry's just like, lol, that's not the doctor, he would never admit that he's wrong. It's like that's so on point, and it's her delivery as well is just, she's just right back at being Perry, and it's
fantastic.
So good. But yeah, so there's an interesting dynamic with this police officer. But anyway, the blind museum creator is helping them out, trying to track this down, particularly because he's very good with his ears now because of his blindness, so he can hear like slight differences in audio and that sort of stuff. So when they mention stuff about audio playback having been changed, he is able to actually pick up on that, which allows them to detect when. It allows them to effectively find this waveform. So the doctor manages to trap it by basically dimming out the audio form and copying it onto a disc. Classic.
Yeah.
Classic Doctor Who fixing of space things.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's like a good idiot's lantern.
It is actually like a good idiot lantern, and I feel like Idiot's Lantern, it was created because of this, and they really did not do a good job of it. But anyway, the point is,
Jubilee.
It's really funny about that. Anyway, so the point is, we continue on from there. Once the running mate Candace lady has arrived, they explain that the audio creature had been going around changing audios, and is actually the embodiment of the Steen Crane, the guy who killed him, well, so apparently killed himself. And she's kind of freaked out by this, obviously, because as it turns out, she's actually the one who ordered him dead. It wasn't a suicide. She killed him because he was going to denounce her because she was power hungry, crazy. So she manages to slip the disc, get her assistant Scoville, I think his name was
Steingard.
Steingard. Scoville was somebody else. Anyway, Steingard. He is able to slip the disc out, and they use technical audio terms to make it so it doesn't escape when they listen to him and get him back. She tries to get him to tell her about which stuff that she changed, particularly around the Candace speech, because that's the one she's trying to play. He doesn't give up any information, but she starts messing with his waveform and makes him go absolutely crazy. Perry barges in because Perry. She accidentally lets him out, and he's gone totally murdery crazy. So things get a bit weary. She still, the Candace lady still wants to go ahead and do the broadcast, but of course that means that the audio monster can get out and go into the real world and get duplicated. So they're not having a good time with this. Doctor works out that they, if they use the recording that they have, they can cancel out her audio transmission by doing the inverse waveforms, which is real science there. Fantastic. And they do that. Yeah, funny that. They do that and basically block her transmission. So she's not too happy about it. But basically what it ends up doing is also fixes the waveform of Vistine Crane, so he's no longer crazy. Well, not like
less crazy.
Sane crazy. He's sane crazy, like he's mad, but he's not crazy mad. But anyway, he tricks he tricks Steingard into pulling out a live cable, and probably the most the most seen it coming thing happening ever. Like,
it's totally telegraphed.
Yeah, you absolutely know this is coming, but somehow Steingard does not know, and then electrocuted. He even screams out, no, it's actually live. It's just like, yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like, it's so good.
Yeah. And he tricks him into doing that by acting as the voice, the audio voice of the museum, and eventually uses his ability to overwrite the canoncy speech, denouncing his running mate when it gets broadcast properly again. So she's out of the job. But then he also goes a step further and plays his audio recording of her of her framing his suicide, but also fixes it so that its context is correct.
Yeah.
So it basically says, hey, you're gonna say that speech about me that denounces me? And he's like, yes, I am gonna do that. Well, I'm gonna kill you then. And hey, your man's got a gun to my head. Yeah. And she's like, that's not what actually happened. And it's like, yeah, but that's contextually actually what happened.
Yeah. Six is like, I fully support this. Like,
yeah. And then he knows. The funniest thing about it is that Six knows that this audio recording killed this other dude that they had, the body. That was from these two people who came in to try and edit some audio files that were like another third party that managed to get out. He killed that guy. He killed Steingard, and the doctor's just like, okay, cool. You're all right. I'm just going to leave you here. And then once he leaves, he totally kills his running mate. Like, it's fantastic. Like, Six just doesn't care. He's just like, you know what? Enact your justice. You're cool. Like, it's pretty crazy. But anyway, that's effectively the synopsis. Obviously, there's a lot of this that I've missed out. Because there's a lot to it. An audio story, there's so much more to these stories than we can ever give to them.
Yeah.
And because they're also way longer than a proper Doctor Who story, or at least a nowadays Who story. So there's
they've got a classic Who runtime.
Exactly. So it's like almost it was like an hour and a half, almost hour and 3/4. So it's like a proper movie length episode, and it feels it because there's a lot of character development going on. There's like this fantastic little bit where basically as soon as you recognize that there's an audio monster, and you recognize that that the blind man is talking to a guy who doesn't want to be seen by anybody else, you kind of in the back of your mind you think, hang on a moment, he's the audio hallucination, isn't he? He's the audio thing. And then it properly gets revealed later on that he totally was just Vistine Crane in the audio form this whole time. That basically he'd been making it seem like he was a real person to this blind guy, and
he was a real friend to the blind guy too, which I really liked.
Exactly, they actually are good friends, and he thanks him at the end, and they're all right buddies, even though he knows for a fact that he went and killed 3 people.
Yeah, but even the Doctor, who's the hero of the day, is like, just kill away, man. They were evil, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They were they were doing bad things. It's so good. Go for it. So yeah, there's so much character development in this that it actually works though. So it's so good. is so good. Just listen to it. Just do it.
The good thing is, guys, is that this is on Spotify. And it is one of the 320 kilobits per second rips as well. And it's an officially endorsed Big Finish Spotify account. So you can listen to the first 50 stories from Big Finish on Spotify. Obviously Spotify Premium. Oh, actually, no, I think it's available to free customers. You just have to listen to heaps of ads, which will probably be, funnily enough, between the segments of the episode.
So it'll be like watching a Classic Who episode just with the screen off.
Yeah, with the screen off. So there you go, guys. It's I echo what Harry Skelly was been saying throughout this whole thing. Is it is really, really good. I love that they used Colin's era's music. I think that fit the tone of the story really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was just great, like, hearing like Classic Who music. Classic Who music, like, it really isn't that good, but like I just love that they just went into it and they were like, sweet, we're going to use the original soundtrack. They funnily enough didn't use Six's intro theme for some reason, but I mean that's not exactly like a negative, to be honest, because who even cares? It's just good. Six just like, I know you're gonna kill Beth, but Perry and I won't be here to see it. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's so Six. It's so good.
When Beth Parnell tries to kill Perry and Perry beats the shit out of her, I loved that. She like comes at Perry and Perry beats her ass and is like, I'm gonna go tell the doctor. And she's like, come back! How dare you beat my ass! And I was just like, it's Perry as well, because like Perry is like, she's nobody's fool, and I always loved like Perry. Is a really good Classic Who companion, and she had to put up with some major crap. She gets choke slammed by the Doctor straight after he regenerates, like, and she has to put up with one of the
hard time. With Six, just the worst time.
Yeah, it was the worst of times. It was the worst of times.
It's not like mellowed out Six after Thing shows up. It's like initial Six where he is just crazy. Like,
yeah, absolutely insane. And
this is after having 5. You know, like the feel good Doctor. Like, you know, she like just like put into a false sense of security, and then all of a sudden he's just like crazy, wants to kill everything. It's just. She's not having a good time, but yeah, she is a fantastic companion, and yeah, it's just very all the way.
And it was just great that like Nicola went straight back into the character, like just seamlessly. I didn't for a moment feel like it was somebody who came back to play a character they haven't played for 30 years. Like,
yeah,
it was just Nicola Bryant playing Perry, and I was like, that is all we needed. That's it.
Pretty much.
And there's so many moments in this that, like, even though there's no visual medium to Big Finish, and it's an audio format, you can kind of audibly feel, if that makes any sense, Perry eye rolling. Like, there's a moment where the Doctor goes, people who have to shout to get their way are the most abhorrent people in the universe. And Perry's like, oh, yep, okay. There's a segment where Six starts correcting everybody's English, and like Beth tries to like one-upmanship him, and he's like, "No, you're still wrong," and it's so good.
Yeah, it's like whom, and then she's like, oh, whom, and then he's like, no, it's who in that case.
it's so good because like it's playing into the narrative of the story, which is a good orator. Right? The whole plot's about a guy who was a good orator, and like the jokes, the kills are all related to the narrative. That's how you tell a good story.
And they utilize the medium perfectly as well. Just the left and right for one thing, but like the other sounds and places that you can very clearly tell when like it slips from being a real like automated voice to being the one created by the audio monster.
Yeah.
So you can very, very clearly tell when it slips into that, and the other characters obviously don't recognize it so easily because they're occupied. But as a listener, you're able to pick that up and you feel it right away. And they put it in there very purposefully, and it works so well.
Yeah. What I think my favorite scene in the whole story, though, is you mentioned it earlier, is when the audio monster version of 6 is like, I was wrong. Imperial is like, I immediately don't believe this is 6, and then 6 walks in and hears himself. He's like, oh, very funny. Like, you're trying to be me, isn't that quaint? And the audio monster's like, damn it, Doctor! I nearly got away with it too. Doctor's like, try again, kiddo. Try again. And it's just like, what a wonderful, wonderful story. Guys, again, this is on their Spotify. The first 50 episodes of the monthly range of Doctor Who are on their Spotify. Definitely, I thoroughly suggest going to Big Finish's Spotify. Gary Russell, please sponsor us. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode of Whoscussion. I was going to say Doctor Who then.
Yeah, we're not Doctor Who.
No, we're not.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.